Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Director Rodriguez, I do appreciate your testimony. I'd like to give you a little bit of a narrative of what's in the front of my mind listening to this, and that is that I took Mr. Gutierrez's advice last weekend and went down to the border and started at the mouth of the Rio Grande River right there at the physical border, planted a flag there, by the way, and worked my way upstream to all the way to Laredo, stopped in at multiple places in Brownsville, in McAllen, other places on up the river, and received briefings at those ports of entry from Custom Border Protection, from Border Patrol, from each law enforcement entity that's down there, including the Department of Public Safety of Texas and Texas Rangers, and talked to people on the street. And here's what comes out of that for me, and that is, and they will all tell us, that DACA is the magnet. And one of the excuses is the '08 law for the other than Mexican unaccompanied alien children. That is developing into a broader policy because it's being exploited. And these children are being sent into the United States at the expense of the American taxpayer. But I met with them. I went also to an HHS not-for-profit subcontractor who are housing 188 of the unaccompanied alien children between the ages of 10 and 17. There were 144 males and 44 females. That's the 188. And there and many other places we learned this. They said that in some cases, 100% of the females that are being sent out of Central America are given birth control before they leave because it's anticipated that they will be raped along the way. I don't believe that number is 100%. I see other numbers that are less than that. But those that are sexually abused, the reports that we got in asking this question at nearly every stop ranged between 1/3 of the females that are coming up. And this is the children, the under 18 children, between 1/3 of them raped and up to 70% of them raped. That does comport with the expectation that handing them birth control pills. So apparently it's this. I expect that my daughter, my granddaughter, my niece, my neighbor, whoever it is that's in custody when they send them, is going to be raped, and I can deal with the sexually transmitted diseases and the mental trauma and the physical trauma as long as she doesn't have a baby that comes along with that. That seems to be the psychology. And we went into the centers where they are detention centers in the Border Patrol, and we saw unaccompanied alien children, males and females. We saw mothers with nursing babies. We saw women that were ready to have a baby, and we watched that process go all the way through, and we went to the bus station to see where they're being dispatched out across the country. I did go and do these things, and here's the asylum is a big piece. Sunday night, we sat at a border crossing upstream from that crossing and downstream from Laredo, and I have in this phone here a video of a raft of 2 coyotes that loaded a pregnant female in it and brazenly took her across the river within plain sight of the Border Patrol and the local city police, deposited her on the shoreline. She gave herself up for asylum, and before she gets a hearing, the baby is an anchor baby. There's not a level of anxiety down there about this happening on an hourly basis in broad daylight in the front of the Border Patrol, in the front of the city police. There's anxiety on my part because I'm watching the rule of law being deconstructed by this administration. I have in my hand here, this is a request for proposal from your operation dated June 19th, which I'd ask unanimous consent to introduce it into the record.
Without objection, so ordered.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And this RFP is 162 pages, titled Solicitation Contract Order for Commercial Items. And one of the things it says in the RFP is this. Based on experience over the past few years, USCIS estimates that application petition receipt levels could increase or decrease from 0.2 on up to 2 million forms per year over the next 5 years. For asylum applications up to 2 million, and the decision has not been made by this administration to expand DACA, which is the foundation for this human tragedy of thousands of girls being raped on their way from the Central America to the United States. And apparently we don't have a conscience about what's happening to these girls, and boys too, by the way, in significant numbers of being sexually abused, not to mention the murders and the death that take place along the way. This administration has made the decision. This RFP put out by your administration would not have been put out if the decision weren't at least on the cusp of imminent. And can you tell me what might cause the administration to retract from this decision, this RFP asking for the ability to process, and by the way, USCIS, this is from the report, needs to acquire records management and support services for its service centers, the objective of the acquisition is to provide comprehensive records management services for Forest Service centers in a manner that ensures efficient and effective adjudication, financial responsibility, and excellent customer service. I appreciate that part, and it anticipates implementation of new laws and policies as a cause for this. I think the administration's made the decision to totally tear asunder the rule of law and grant administrative amnesty to 5 or more million people, and do so while this Congress is out of session. How would you respond to that, Director Rodriguez?
Well, first of all, let me start by saying, am I audible? DACA offers no benefit to the individuals coming over the border. They are not eligible for DACA or any version of DACA. Secondly, to the extent, and I'm not familiar with the specific contract that you describe, we prepare for surges in work that can come from all kinds of sources. And so I will certainly look into that particular contract when I return to my office this afternoon, but I would not necessarily attribute it to the situation at the border. As far as adults, roughly 15% are asserting credible fear claims. As far as children, it is in the low single digits, the number of children who are actually making asylum claims at some point in the process. That's a different process than the credible fear process. So I just thought those facts would be potentially helpful.
We have those who are lawfully present during DACA, and there's an anticipation that DACA will be expanded. Anybody thinks that they think that if they can get into America, they get to stay in America, and we know that that number is well above 98% who get into America, who get to stay in America, and the asylum applications that come, this woman will apply for asylum. And before she's heard, the baby will be born, and there will be an anchor in this country, and that came right under my nose. I'd yield back.